The algorithms. Yeah, I did talk about hiring a hitman to kill me so my family could get the inheritance. I'll be reporting words like retard. Nobody has thought of that apart from me. People are all too happy to get bounty by abusing the disabled. I said Dorothy Hepworth and Patricia Priest were lovers, and Patricia married Spencer for security on the condition he could join in. I don't think it worked out because only one of Patricia's artworks survived. Not that I'm in love with a woman, I mean he was an undercover cop. The G-spot gives a different vibration and is much coveted by both men and women. There are ways of exploring it. Even enjoying a shower can be sexual. Mental illness is like getting high and never coming down again. Always alone, standing before a monster trying to sweet talk it. The monster may turn friendly, but it's all on his terms. Sex is mind-altering. I've overheard men talking when I wasn't there. Why do women smell of fish? Do they piss out of their vaginas? 27 is quite old for a filly. She's a right little goer. That one's too easy. Give us a strawberry. Sometimes I would sit with them to see how much I could take. There's always more to find out about yourself. I often buy a new vibrator because I break them and some of them get noisy. They had a fight down an alleyway. All this talk of drugs and violence, and the guy with the chain won this one. My book will be called The Love Bomber, Narcissism and Violence in the 1980s. There's a sword hanging in the air in a cave with blue sheets of rain. Explodes and bits of stalactites, luminous green icicles, and shells and things all going flying, the light reflecting itself like a sheet of air making guillotine mask on the beach. I gasped at that flash of light. My mother thought the radiators were bugged by Scottish Celts. You look like moonlight. I did a painting of you which was admired. Alcohol sometimes puts me into a threesome fantasy. My young neighbours are in the garden having a laugh about the Paralympics and people with no arms or legs. And yeah, you did make me feel suffocated on one occasion when a relative was watching. Difficult for me to understand I didn't deserve the abuse. I was quite a nasty piece of work at the time, bitchy and very beautiful. Making cutting put downs, stuck up, that kind of thing. In those days, fighting was a display of passion. And now I treat other people for trauma. Unique angle. Posh girl falls for a werewolf and his abuse is what made her what she is. And highlight mental health, the zeitgeist, the music. And so for me, drug highs were nothing compared to thrill-seeking highs. Some of them were dangerous and destructive in my younger years. Danger and violence and lots of adrenaline. In my childhood, you weren't anybody unless you were getting divorced or living in sin. He had traits of hippiness, but a very clean one, very straight edge, an emo kid with an anorak. That's where I get the geek thing from. Really didn't expect to fall for him, he wasn't my type. And the squats, we had people from the streets, people of all races, guitars, percussion instruments, practically open door, and people trying to guru us, older people. We didn't seem to be afraid of anybody, made up beds for them, shared our food, smoked dope together. And I would get violently sick, not sure if it was because of the hygiene or because of some sort of spiking. I remember people putting their hands on my back to heal me as I screamed in sickness. Brushes with death, I think, mostly around Neil, being chased with a pane of glass, being locked into his flat, threatened with scissors. I've often felt close to death and found it comforting. The zeitgeist was everybody was fighting. There were drugs, but I'd say the fights and arguments were more the thing at the time. Swearing, shouting, angst, drama, soap operas going on, intrigues, infidelities, that sort of thing. But yeah, we had some good parties doing freak out dances. The others standing in a circle while one person lets rip. We're one of those cultures with embarrassed politeness, but also extremely rude and offensive we are, unceremonious. And those days I was more into the journey than the destination. I wasn't bothered if I didn't arrive, I'd just sort it out later. In a squat where you have to gobble up your plate of food quickly before someone else asks for it, then tells you you're tight for not giving up. There was a saxophone player once waited for me about 4 days. Okay, so you're down to your last tenner, your boyfriend is chasing you with a pane of glass and you've got to get a train with no money. And a voice boomed out, you have been seen jumping over the ticket barrier, running and running into London. No clue where I was going, not a good runner. I found superhuman strength from the adrenaline. I could surprise a man with how strong I was. It took me 2 years to get him into bed. The earthy sensuality of bohemian life, sofas draped with purple and maroon, velvet throws, rooms dimly lit in the daytime, smell of wine and cork, trippy wallpaper with huge flowers and an atmosphere of sin. The backpack used to carry supplies that I'd looked up in an SAS survival manual, including a penknife and everything wrapped in plastic. I seem to have bitten and scratched him today. Guess I'm like a smelly rescue cat with trust issues. Drugs were nothing compared to coming off them with my straight-edge boyfriend and the ensuing awakening, the surge of energy up the spine, deepening perception of colours and sounds, and a flash of lightning, similar but much more intense than an acid trip. Not sure if it was the adrenaline from our fights. When we were not fighting, we'd be running through the streets, laughing, playing music and madly in love. There was nobody else, no game playing with other lovers, just each other. That day we carried candles through the streets, wishing strangers a happy Christmas. The world wasn't ready for us. I had a conversation in the sex shop and I'm exploring the G-spot, I said, so I don't want the rabbit one. She said it's just round the corner as you go in, which I agreed with. Some of the vibrators are like a large crochet hook to dig into the G-spot. Last time I saw that lady, she didn't open up, but now she's got into the spirit. Actually, I was most horny during the change, with much bigger climaxes and those trippy ones where the sky goes black and you're thrown off the bed. There was one person in particular that triggered them. There's a kind of a force field from the collective trauma, a roiling cauldron of trouble. I had a pattern of lusting for a guy, lacking confidence, and then getting off with his friend. Some men would say no, which would impress me. They were interested, but not sure, not ready. I hugged a serial killer in the secure unit. He was on the run. At one point I had 2 periods a month.